Welcome to the Missouri Wind and Solar Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Shank, coming to you from our store in Seymour, Missouri. Each week with my co-host and Missouri Wind's General Manager, David McDarris, we discuss the latest on renewable energy. Check out our additional educational information on our website at mwands.com. Thank you for downloading this podcast, and please subscribe.
So I've made David go out to the house that I'm building multiple times, and it's nice being able to take him out there as part of work. And so he can't get away from me or anything. It's just like, come on, get in the truck. We're going out to the property. Like he doesn't have anything else to do with his days other than ride around with me out on the property. But one of the things that we're looking out there, we're excited that we're doing this in a video series too. So once we get all done, we're going to put together a pretty good video series, I think, on being able to show putting all this together, are the towers that we're going to put out at the property. For what we're planning right now is at least 2. And we haven't fully rolled out our Triumph wind turbine, which is a 3 rotor wind turbine. We've been playing with it for a while. We're excited about it. So we've been looking at the tower placement, that sort of thing out on the property to figure out how we do that. So I thought today a good thing to get with David on and get him talking about our towers overall. It's been a while since we've talked about and what we need to look at in a tower and what we need to avoid and those type of things. So as we're looking out at the property, David, what are you seeing out there, and particularly in the new motor that we're doing? What's kind of your ideas for what we need to do out there? For one, I know we need to talk about, I'm sure that comes into play on this, is whether the tower is supporting a single, a dual, or in this case, we're talking about the new new triple, right? The Triumph. So when we're talking with folks about putting up a wind turbine, what are we telling them about towers? What's kind of
That's the first thing. That what size turbine are you going to be putting up on the tower? And this is just talking about our turbines, of course, not of somebody else's turbine as much. And then also, what is going to be the blade count on it? That's something that you've got to keep in mind as well. Because if I put up an 11 blade, maybe in an off-grid situation, I put up an 11 blade because I want to catch all that small wind energy that I can, trying to, not worrying so much about the high end energy as I am just catching all the energy on the lower end, because I'm off grid. You're going to have a lot, your overall wind load is going to be a lot greater.
The force pushing on that, right?
It's because you have so much more surface area up on that tower. So your wind load is going to be greater on that 11 blade. So that's the first thing we're going to do is.
So kind of dumbing it down. It's like saying, I'm going to put a piece of plywood up there in the air, versus I'm going to put a piece of PVC, I'm going to 1-inch pipe up in there. So the wind's going to blow around that versus
PVC, or I'm going to put up an entire wall of plywood up there. You're just going to have a lot more wind load that you're going to have to take into effect.
So then what do you start to change? What are you looking at?
Most of the time at this point, you're starting to change how many guy wires you're going to need.
Okay. So not necessarily the piping.
Not so much the piping. It's now going to be how often you're going to have to guy wire that thing. So you may on a 5-blade G5 turbine, you may get away with. We're talking about a 65-foot tower because that's what we plan on doing at Wes's facility, a 65-foot tower. You might get away with 3 sets of guy wires, whereas if you're going to do it on an 11-blade, you may need, or you will need, a 4 set of guy wires to make sure that turbine's not going to start shaking that tower, because that's what we're trying to keep away from.
All right. Now, when you say 3 sets of guy wires, are you talking about 3 as you go up?
Or
up 3 as you
you're going to have 4 sets of guy. You're going to have 4 connection points. I mean, you're going to
wherever you're going to have north, south, east, west.
Yes, basically, that's exactly the best.
But you're going to have 3 sets of north, south, east, west.
Right.
So 12.
Right.
Okay.
So you're going to have 12. And that's on our tower that we have up right now, and this is the Gen Pole tower. That's what we've not came up with exactly what we want to put there yet, and hopefully get just a little bit more time for what we want to do, but we're going to do some.
And then what's the pipe size?
The pipe size that we use on our current tower out here is 2-inch, and then it's neck down at the last 6 feet into 1.5 because our turbine mounts on 1.5 Schedule 40 steel pipe, non-galvanized. You cannot galvanize the pipe because that actually adds a coating to it, and our bracket is not meant to go over that galvanization. It will be too tight. It won't turn. It won't track the wind. You'll just get up there and you'll have it
be stuck on there.
Yeah, you'll be a lock position turbine, and if you get lucky, the wind comes from that way, then you're great. If you're not, then it's no good, no bueno. So that's our last 6 feet. So we've seen many people do, start out with 3-inch on the base and move up from there. We've had a lot of people don't wind up doing the gin pole like we do to lift and lower their towers.
So when you say the gin pole, are you talking about the cantilever?
Yeah, it's the cantilever type is what it is.
And so when we talk about that, we're talking about it's an L shape.
Yep, L shape.
And at the corner of the L, it's got so really the pole is not in the ground at all.
No, the pole is not.
The hinge at the corner is set in concrete.
Yep.
And then in our case, we just have a El Cheapo.
Yeah, Harbor Freight.
It's a Harbor Freight, yeah.
Harbor Freight winch,
that pulls on the L that then lies horizontal to the ground,
right,
and lifts and lowers it.
Yeah, and in the gin pole itself, when it's lowered, there'll be and you can take them off and put them back on as you raise and lower it. Me personally, I would rather take them off and then put them back on them.
Because you lawnmower them.
Because you lawnmower or you catch your toe on it and you trip and fall. But there's a set of guy wires that actually go on the gin pole, so when it raises into the air, it keeps it stable as well. But it doesn't need the 4-point. It's just keeping it from falling east and west, basically. Because you actually have the other one, which is tensioned off of the actual back of and then the north on that one would be the tower itself. I mean, it's holding it to the north. I mean, it can't go anywhere that way. So anyway, that's on the gin pole rigging. But now, like I said, 2-inch, 2.5-inch, that's what most people are using for pipe, and then necking down.
Okay. What's the deal with Roan towers?
Roan towers are not good for installation. They're just not good for
And so the Roan tower is the triangular.
Triangular looks like a cell tower, basically.
And a lot of people had them for TV antennas.
That was the number one thing that was used for, and that's why a lot of people went to them, because they already had one up. I mean, they had the old TV antenna that was sitting on top of it. And the problem with the Roan tower is, for one, they weren't designed to have a piece of pipe put into it and kind of fabricated into the top of it. And what it does is cause excessive vibration. They're not meant to have a big wind load up there like that. Who cared if the antenna blew back and forth a little bit and shook the tower? It didn't, it didn't have any. I mean, maybe the TV got fuzzy for just a half a second, and before it came back, But with wind turbines, it's a total different animal. I mean, we're looking for a solid structure that has, little to no movement in it. So all that wind energy, and vibration, that's
anytime
just loss
you got
of energy.
You're just losing it.
You're just losing your energy, right?
And it's got to be even more expensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're talking about a welded structure, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you can buy them. They're in sections. You're going to have some type of cherry picker or something to put these things up.
I guess you could cantilever it too, couldn't you?
You could. It'd be a little bit difficult, but they're just not. And don't, if somebody is listening and has got them, don't get mad at me for saying it. They're just not made for that application. That's just not what they're made
in this
for.
case. Cheaper is actually the better.
Right. And then there's other towers on the. You can find some really expensive towers on the market, really expensive, $10,000, $12,000 type towers. That are single pole that take no guy wiring. That's what a lot of people want. A lot of people want the no guy wire. Wes and Wyatt and I and Sam, we're all trying to come up with a way. That's exactly what we want to do at Wes's house. He wants to get away from the guy wires. At Wes's house, we have to keep another thing in mind. We've got power lines that we have to back off of, that we're going to be taller than the power lines by far. The power lines that actually come through his place for whatever reason are probably not 40 foot off the air, 40 foot in the air. And
I tried to get them moved.
Yeah, I know. But they said no. So,
they didn't say no.
Say no.
They said no in a different way.
By the money they talked, they said no. So we're trying to get away from that. We're doing a lot of research into towers right now, trying to figure out exactly how we can get away from that. And hopefully it's something we can show you in the video when we do get it done. So.
Well, some of the other things that I've seen and a lot of customer projects, what are the advantages, disadvantages? We've seen customers have one tower with 3 wind turbines on it, and towers with 2 wind turbines on it, and
if
the roof mounts.
Yeah. Well, roof mounts. Okay, so we'll talk about roof mounts, and we sell roof mounts, so I'm not dissuading you from a roof mount. Roof mount is going to probably be the least effective of mounting a turbine. Reason being, unless you're a really steep pitched roof, right? And even at that, what the problem is you got with a roof tower is, and I'm talking with my hands right now, but the problem is
he's making a little house.
Making a little house point is when you come up off that rooftop, that peak of that house, you're going to have the wind that you're trying to catch is actually at the turbine level, and it's coming across. But the problem is there's a wind below that as well, and it's going to hit that. It's going to hit that slope of that roof, and it's going to actually push an updraft into that turbine. And so on the bottom side of that blade, it's going to catch a little bit of drag. It's going to try to work a little bit in reverse on that top side that it's actually you're trying to push. So it's not that they don't work; they just aren't as efficient as a freestanding tower.
I mean, it's just it's our examples we give of dirty wind,
right?
And
it causes a little bit of dirty wind.
And if it doesn't make sense to you, go out and put a sheet of plywood at an angle and hit it with the hose. See what happens to the water.
That's
it's
exactly,
going to fly up into the air.
Now having multiple turbines on one tower, there again, if you can have a tower strong enough and you can keep those things spaced accordingly, which they need to be about 3 foot apart. I mean, so you're talking a very long piece of 1.5 inches and that's going to get really starting to get weak as you get that far apart from each other, because our turbines are going to usually have an 80-inch swept area. So you're looking at about 45 inches. And so you're going to be looking at about 8 foot that they're going to have to be spaced apart. And then you're going to have, of course, 6 foot below that. So you got 14 feet now of 1.5 inch schedule 45.
There are people that do it.
And they do it. It's just you got to be mindful of that. If you if you're in a heavy, hard wind area, Wyoming, western Kansas, Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, anywhere, Nebraska, anywhere that you're out in that good wind. If you see big wind turbines, you're in a good wind area. Joplin region, even around in Missouri, northern Missouri. Anywhere that you're seeing a lot fewer trees and a lot more open ground, you're going to have a lot more wind, and so you got to be mindful of that. Make sure that tower is going to be there. Again, you may be investing anywhere from $600 to $1,000 per turbine in this thing, plus the tower. Just don't go throwing $1,000 away because you wanted to skimp out. And
now we've talked about the tower. Let's talk for a minute because I should have asked you this earlier on. The placement. I mean, I know. We have a lot of questions. Yeah. Somebody lives in a forest and wants buy
solar, or I don't know, buy a generator because that's not good. Now, if you live in a forest, which is totally possible, you got to get above the trees. You got to go by 10 feet.
By 10 feet.
By 10 feet.
So if you live in Oregon and you have 200-foot sequoia,
yeah.
You've got to build a tower that's 210 feet.
10 feet tall. Or you got to cut back trees 250 feet from, and that's going to be on the radius. So,
right.
So
500.
So 500 feet, So that's a big number. I personally at my house wouldn't cut back. Well, if I cut back 500 feet, I would cut all my trees down. And that's
now at my place,
Wes's place, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't hit a tree.
Wes is in perfect harmony with wind power, and not everybody is. So we had one of the guys that came to the class last time, and that was one of the major reasons he came was for wind power. And unfortunately, he had to leave without a wind turbine. No, he actually left with the wind turbine, and knowing the limits and that it was going to have. It
right. I mean, and that's the thing, like Sam lives off grid, but he lives in a bit of a valley.
In the valley and the forest, so.
But one of the things that we've talked about in some of the environments that we went into and looked at putting this is that, okay, if we say 250 feet, if you're at 200, it doesn't mean it won't work.
Right. That's exactly right. you can be in the middle of the trees, and I'm not saying it's not going to work. It's just not going to work to the capabilities of the turbine's specifications. That's if you put it in that area, don't get mad that you're not getting the 500 watts at 15 mile an hour that you think you should be getting.
Right.
Because you're not going to get that.
Just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen. So limit the expectations and you'll be fine. Just say, hey, I just need to capture a little bit of energy. Whatever I capture, I'm good with it. Then put one in. And that's what the gentleman at the last class did. He said, hey, whatever I can catch is what I'll catch. I want one. I've always wanted one. And that's great. Do it. Now, if you're needing it, if you're needing X amount of power, if you say, I have to have this amount of power, and you're basing it off of our charts that are in open field conditions, no obstruction, clean wind conditions, then you're not going to be happy with the result. You're just not going to be happy. So placing that turbine on a good tower in a good location will result in what we have at many, many times have monitored and actually tested, but doing it in somewhere, middle of the forest, 20 foot high.
Okay. Well, let's do that. So what are our 3 measurements? So we need 250 feet of pushback.
Right.
We need 10 feet above any
obstruction.
Any obstruction. And then we need a minimum height of...
I always say 30 feet. Now, we see a lot of people at 20 feet. And I'm just going to tell you, you're just not going to get the... At 20 feet, there's wind there, but you're still not in clean wind. At 20 foot, you're not in clean wind. You'll still be, you'll get dirty wind from the ground itself at 20 feet.
So really what we're looking at is 10, 30, 250.
Yep. So that's it. You got to, 30 feet, you're starting to get into the clean wind. Wes has asked me at one time, what's a cheap, easy way without buying a big weather station and doing all this, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to get to figure out if you got any kind of wind there, or where you should, height wise, you're in a Mylar balloon with a kite string.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. A helium filled Mylar balloon with a kite string marked at 5 foot intervals and let that thing out. And as you let it up and take an average day, take an average, 10 to 15 mile an hour wind day that, that's not ripping the winds, not where, right. You're not going out there on an abnormal day with a tornado coming in type of deal. You're going out there on the average day. Let it up, and then you'll see that balloon. It'll dance as it starts up, and eventually it's going to just take off one way or the other. It's going to go left or right or, at your back.
Let me validate your, Jeremy was out there laying the concrete, and we were out there doing some video and I shot the drone up, and the drone went up 30, 40 feet, and then went,
yeah.
And it was like,
you could do it with it. Yeah.
Wes trying to catch it and bring it back. Like, oh, man.
Wes has got a good point there. He found it using a drone. So if you have a drone, that's another way to do it,
But you might be chasing the drone through a couple other fields trying to get your drone back.
A fairly expensive deal. So I don't know. Mylar balloon's pretty cheap. But,
Mylar balloon. But it was funny.
But you'll find that wind, and you might find that, at 30 feet, you didn't have much. And you might find that if you just went to 35 feet, that you're catching that extra wind, and that may be a deciding factor of how much you're going to produce. So just understand also the higher your tower goes over 30 feet, every 10 foot you go over 30 feet, you gain 20% more wind energy. So at 65 foot, if you were to come out here and we were to video on a 10 to 15 mile an hour day, you would see our wind turbines, or let's go out on what we say no wind. 5 mile an hour, you'll see the turbines on the roof and they're sitting there stagnant, not doing anything. And you look at the 65 foot tower and that thing's out there producing,
It produces almost all the time.
And it's just sitting there, maybe it's not producing the 2,000 watts it's capable of, or 3,000 watts right now because it's the Triumph. But it's producing something,
It's very seldom.
Very, very seldom. And if it's not blowing, you're not got any wind.
And if it's not blowing, usually we always suspect that Wyatt has it on break for some reason.
We've got it on break.
That he's done something.
95% of the time, you're going to see that turbine spinning.
I think the last question maybe I've got for you on this, unless you've got some other stuff, is there anything wrong with attaching some stuff to the tower? I know like on our 65-foot tower, we have an anemometer out there.
Yeah.
Can we throw a TV antenna up there? Can we throw a ham radio?
The Sam is now getting, I think, into ham radio, and that's what he's building a tower right now, I think, for his ham radio. But as he's doing it, I think he's thinking, well, I'm going to do a wind turbine now since I'm doing this anyway. But no, that's fine, so long as it doesn't impede the wind flow, and doesn't
create
cause
some vibration.
That's the two things that you're going to try to keep away from. I will say on a tower, the one thing I would say, the gen pole is a great application. Now, we've only lowered ours down in 7 years. We've lowered it down twice in the last 7 years, and both times it's actually changed the generator. And it's not because the generator the generator was working perfect. We're just testing new ones. That's all we're doing. Everything was still good to go when we lowered them down. It was still tracking into the wind good. We didn't change anything except the generator head. We left the same blade systems on them. Just switched out the generator heads, to get
and I mean, to be fair, children don't try this at home. We're always kind of trying to see what. Yeah, tornadoes coming. Hey, let's go watch and see what.
Yeah, we go and watch it. For a couple of different reasons. We want to make sure that the turbine's going to survive. We want to see what kind of energy it produces at those high winds. We've literally had our turbine go through an event last year that was straight line winds. Clocked.
Oh yeah, when it took the building, took the roof off the buildings in town.
It was literally clocked at 94 mile an hour. Got done, and it still said. It was screaming like a demon up there. That thing was honking on, but it was crazy. But the gen pole will allow you, especially if you do live out in those western states where you do get that hard, heavy wind, or maybe a little more prone to tornadic activity. That gen pole, it doesn't take long to let it down, and you can typically let that thing down in a matter of, if you leave your cables hooked up, the trip cables, I call them. If you leave your trip cables hooked up, you can hook it up. You can let that thing down with a matter of about 3 minutes, So it doesn't take long. If you know that, hey, there's big storms planned for the night, they're talking about big storms, let that thing down. Just get it out of the wind, that way you're not losing everything as it comes by. You never know, you may be losing power, and being able to raise that thing right back up and get it back active may be the key to you having power versus everybody else. So,
all right, do we miss anything else on the towers?
We're good.
All right, as always, if you need some advice, actually we've got some really good YouTube videos on the tower, correct?
Yeah.
I've not watched them myself, but I know we've got them out there. So
they're out there.
And you can always contact our guys here. They'll be able to give you some information on that. Appreciate you tuning in today, and we'll keep bringing you these wonderful podcasts as long as you keep downloading them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast today. If you have a question that you'd like to hear us discuss on the podcast, email us at radio@mwands.com. You can follow us on our website, mwands.com, or subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. Check out our store at mwands.com and buy some stuff. Buying stuff allows us to continue to produce our educational broadcasts, like our podcasts and YouTube videos. And most importantly, it keeps Lucy's doggy chicken treats coming. Thanks again.